Former President Donald Trump is living up to his infamous penchant for filing lawsuits. He's going after the big social media companies that banned him from their sites for spreading the so-called big lie about the 2020 presidential election. Listen to Trump make his case.
Today, in conjunction with the America First Policy Institute, I'm filing as the lead class representative a major class action lawsuit against the big tech giants, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, as well as their CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, and Jack Dorsey. Three real nice guys. We're asking the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida to order an immediate halt to social media companies' illegal, shameful censorship of the American people, and that's exactly what they are doing. We're demanding an end to the shadow banning, a stop to the silencing, and a stop to the blacklisting, banishing, and canceling that you know so well. Our case will prove this censorship is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and it's completely un-American.
All right, let's discuss with our top legal analysts, Jeffrey Toobin and Laura Coates. Jeffrey, does this lawsuit have any realistic chance of succeeding?
It does not. I think, as most people know, the First Amendment operates as a bar on the government discriminating on the basis of people's viewpoints. It does not tell Facebook or CNN what it can and can't broadcast, and Facebook has the right to ban Donald Trump from the use of its facilities according to its own rules. In addition, this is not a class action, and Facebook has a rule that if you are going to sue Facebook, you have to sue in California, not in Florida. So it is a publicity stunt. It's a phone-raising device, but it will get a lot of attention.
It certainly will. You know, Laura, he claims these companies are violating his First Amendment rights. What do you make of that claim?
Well, I find it shocking that he was the president of the United States and doesn't understand that state actor distinction. I mean, your mother telling you to be quiet doesn't violate your First Amendment rights, nor does your exclusion from a private company's playground called Twitter or Facebook or anything else. You can, as Jeffrey said, file this under a publicity stunt, but it was meant to be brought in the court of public opinion. You heard the support and the applause behind him because it's an attack against this so-called cancel culture, when in reality, the First Amendment does not somehow, by virtue of the fact that a government actor or somebody who wants to participate cannot, it doesn't convert these private companies into state actors. They have a First Amendment right to moderate their platforms, but he's really talking about Section 203, or 230, as well, in his attempt to try to ensure that these tech companies somehow can be held liable for their content moderation because he wants to participate in a way that was successful for him, beneficial for him. The problem is the people he named there, none of them are state actors, nor can they be converted to state actors for his purposes.
But if I could, add one point. I mean, Laura and I agree, and I think everyone who is familiar with the law will say that this case does not have any merit. But there is a problem here, and even if you don't like Donald Trump, you have to understand it, which is the power of these companies. I mean, these companies control a tremendous amount of the information in the world. Think about another company, Amazon Web Services, which essentially runs the cloud. Can Amazon simply say, on any of the thousands and thousands of websites, we don't want the following statements to be made? They haven't done that yet. But, that is a problem. And the power of these companies is a problem. The law has not addressed it yet. This goofy lawsuit won't address it. But the problem is real, and Trump, as usual, is recognizing a source of anger in the country, even if he's not doing anything productive about it.
If this lawsuit goes forward, Laura, the social media companies and their lawyers, they can call for depositions of the president. He'll be called to testify and provide all sorts of information about what's going on. I suspect he's not anxious to do so. What do you think?
I mean, it's amazing how often people sort of circle around Donald Trump with the hopes of getting a deposition out of him. And oftentimes what happens is the reaction is, the result is a written response to questions and best recollection, et cetera. But as Jeffrey talked about, the idea here in terms of being able to depose him to say what? Obviously, we all want other information from Donald Trump, but the idea of what? Whether or not these entities are state actors, whether the President of the United States, the former President of the United States, is aware that they're not part of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch, and therefore they're not part of the Congress shall make no law aspect of these things. What gets you about this case is, of course, as you're talking about Section 230, both Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, right-wing, left-wing, they all would like to see the changes to the Communications Decency Act. There are questions about the idea of the parameters of these powerful organizations, but the First Amendment is not the vehicle or the conduit to do so, and to conflate it really is just idiotic.
You take this lawsuit, in Florida, does it hold any merit?
None, Aaron. You know, sometimes we say, oh, we'll have to wait for the facts to develop, or we'll say it's a very complicated area of law. Not here. This doesn't even set forward a cognizable legal case with merit at all. So the fact that he claims a First Amendment violation, which is the only thing that he claims here, he's claiming it against private companies. You can only claim a First Amendment violation against the government. So right out of the gate, this has no merit at all. I suspect it will be swiftly dismissed.
So, Dan, this, seemed to be coordinated at some level. Less than an hour after Trump announced the lawsuit, a text message goes out to his supporters trying to fundraise off of it. How successful will that be? I mean, how much do you think this riles up the base?
Well, I think it'll be successful from Trump's point of view in that he's just trying to stay relevant. He's trying to stay in the news, and we're talking about him. But, the lawsuit's going to go nowhere, and I think the fundraising, the ultimate rewards from the fundraising attempts will be just a blip here. But, Trump was silenced. He said that when he was deplatformed, he said he was going to launch a media empire, and that's basically fizzled. And I think this lawsuit's an admission of that.
So, Jennifer, the lawsuit does claim, you raised this point, that Facebook's a state actor, not a private company. So conservative lawyer George Conway, husband of Kellyanne, tweets, quote, "What makes this Meta insane is that he's claiming that the Facebook was a federal state actor because it was entangled with the federal government at a time when he was president of the United States." Now, Jennifer, when you take a look at this, Trump, has filed 1,900 lawsuits, according to USA Today, right, before he even became president, right? Filing lawsuits, many of them frivolous and dismissed, is his M.O. But, when you take a big picture look at this, even though this may be frivolous, and I know you think it's going to be dismissed, do you have real questions about the whole issue of these private companies now seemingly controlling free speech in this country in many ways?
Well, it's really interesting because what he's doing here really is lobbying. I mean, lots of people have those questions. Congress has been in all sorts of hearings over the past few years about this question, and Congress can regulate it. They can legislate in this area. So what he really should be doing is just making this point, calling his congressperson, taking out ads, using the huge megaphone that he still has, notwithstanding that he's been kicked off these platforms, to make this point. But what you don't do is file a lawsuit. I mean, that's an abuse of the court to use the court for something that really is lobbying, not setting forth a legal reason that you've been injured and you're entitled to compensation.
And I know you've made it clear you think this will be, quickly dismissed. I mean, Dan, this fight against big tech, though, and the way Trump is fighting this fight, right, by doing things like this lawsuit that don't have merit, have sort of become a rallying cry for the right. I mean, just listen to this.
The internet's hall monitors out in Silicon Valley, they think they can suppress us, discourage us.
Big tech, I believe, poses the single greatest threat to free speech in our country today, and poses the single greatest threat to democracy in our day.
Last I checked, I thought that the Declaration said that our rights come from God, not from Google. Is that right? I mean, last I checked.
I mean, it is a rallying cry now, Dan, in the right, and you hear the crowd at CPAC cheering there to Senator Hawley. But I know you think that this move could actually hurt the Republican Party. Explain why.
Well, I think this is going to hurt the Republican Party because, look, what we need to be doing is this kind of naked fundraising appeal an hour after he filed the lawsuit, people are going to see it for just that, and it's really not going to mean anything. in the long term. We're damaging the Republican brand. What we need to do to win in 2022, to take the White House back in 2024, is we need to appeal to centrist voters that go to work every day, that have families and concerns of their own. So I think we need to be focused on being the loyal opposition to Joe Biden's policies and trying to make them stronger and better for American families. And we need to be focused on legislation. This kind of stuff, as Trump is out, has got this kind of Me Too brand of politics. His tours, his rallies are really like this kind of never-ending revenge tour. This kind of stuff is not the path back to the majority. I think that he's trying to have this kind of purity test, that like a Barry Goldwater type purity test, that's going to leave us with a smaller minority